Usually when we talk about finding peace, there is this deeply ingrained expectation of a specific destination. You know, you picture yourself sitting alone on some pristine beach or maybe standing at the peak of a remote mountain.
Right. Or you're wrapped in a plush robe in a spa somewhere,
Hmm.
paying like an absolute premium to listen to whale sounds on a loop.
Exactly. We are constantly sold this idea that peace is a place you have to travel to. I mean, it's marketed as this extreme escape from everyday reality.
Yeah, it really is. It's the assumption that, well, to find the quiet, you have to completely eradicate all the noise.
Hmm.
Which, when you think about the actual logistics of modern life, it makes peace feel like a luxury item.
Oh, totally. Like something you have to save up for, pack a bag for, and deliberately carve out a week of vacation just to finally experience.
Exactly. And that is why the premise of today's deep dive is so completely paradigm shifting.
It really is. Today, we're looking at a fascinating essay by a blogger and musician named Nanda Kumar Nair. The piece is called Peace Lives in the Crack Between Two Things.
Which is such a great title.
Right. And the core argument here is that the absolute most peaceful real estate in the universe is not at either extreme end of the spectrum. Like, you don't have to go to the mountaintop, and you definitely don't have to retreat to total silence.
No, not at all. True peace actually hangs out exactly where two opposing things bump into each other.
Yeah, the seam, or the hyphen, as he kind of puts it.
Right, that microscopic juncture,
Yeah.
where two distinct forces meet, and for just a fraction of a second, neither one is winning.
Yeah.
And what makes this source material so compelling is how it takes this really abstract idea
Yeah.
and maps it across entirely different disciplines. I mean, we're going to look at the physical geography of nature, the psychoacoustics of classical music, and, the depths of ancient philosophy.
All to kind of uncover the mechanics of this gap,
Yeah.
right? And how you can practically access it today.
Exactly.
So let's start with the physical world, because the essay uses natural landscapes to show us what this seam actually looks like in practice. And once you grasp the visual, the concept really clicks.
It really does.
I mean, think about the shoreline. When you stand right where the sea kisses the sand, you are standing in this completely liminal space. It's not fully water, and it's not fully land.
Right, you're at the edge of both, but you are governed by neither.
Exactly. Or consider a valley. We often think of valleys just as the low point between two highs. But environmentally, a valley is literally the space where the tension of the mountain's altitude finally, exhales into rest.
I love that. Two massive geological forces sloping down to meet, just creating a quiet basin.
Yeah. But the most striking natural example the author points to actually happens right above us in the sky. It's that specific, really fleeting slot of time between dawn and full daylight.
Or between the late evening and the dark of night, right?
Yeah, and ancient Indian yogis actually had a very precise vocabulary for this. They called it sanya, which translates roughly to the junction. They also referred to it as Brahma Muhurta.
Right. And the fascinating thing is they didn't just, notice the lighting change. They treated these gear shifts of the day as biological reset buttons.
Yeah, like it's the moment where the noisy, chaotic twins of day and night briefly just leave the room.
And that brings us to the underlying mechanism here. Like, why does the shoreline or the twilight feel so inherently calming to us?
Because it's not just an aesthetic thing, right?
Exactly. It's not just us thinking, oh, what a pretty sunset. Something biological is actually happening. I mean, we are pattern-matching creatures, constantly processing opposing charges.
Like hot and cold, loud and quiet, active and passive.
Right. And in philosophy, this is often represented as masculine and feminine energies, or Shiva and Shakti. When you stand in the seam, those opposing charges literally neutralize.
Right, so the nervous system just stops having to calculate which side it needs to defend against or react to.
Exactly. It just unbooks itself.
I was thinking about this, and it's the exact sensation of a pendulum swinging. If you picture this heavy metal pendulum, right, it swings all the way to the right, building up all this potential energy, and then it swings all the way to the left.
That's right, back and forth.
But there is a mathematical certainty at the very top of that arc, like that exact microscopic moment when it reaches its absolute highest point right before gravity pulls it back down.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Its velocity is literally zero. For one tiny fraction of a second, there is a perfect weightless suspension.
That weightless suspension is such a perfect metaphor for what happens to the human brain in these gaps. The constant low-grade hum of processing this versus that simply stops.
Yeah, you catch a glimpse of grace in that perfectly balanced center just because there is nothing to push against.
And we experience this in everyday microscopic moments, too. It's not just grand landscapes. It's, the polite, hovering silence between two sentences in a crowded room.
Oh, definitely. Or it's the pause in a great action movie right before the hero finally throws the punch.
Yes, Hollywood directors know that the punch itself isn't the payoff.
Right. It's the massive inhale of silence right before it that makes your heart race.
Exactly, which perfectly transitions into how humans have actively weaponized this biological quirk.
Oh, weaponize is a great word for it.
Right. Because we don't just stumble upon these gaps in nature, we manufacture them on purpose to manipulate human emotion. And the most effective way we have ever figured out how to do that is through music.
Because music is essentially just the intentional engineering of tension and release. I mean, the essay dives into how the entire 4th-century tradition of Western harmony is basically one long, highly sophisticated argument about delaying gratification.
It really is. Composers create a sonic tension, like a chord that sounds like it's asking an urgent question.
Right, and then they make the listener's nervous system literally lean forward and wait for the answer, just begging for that feeling of home.
And the physiological reaction to that is undeniable. The author breaks down a few specific musical scenes to show how this works. Let's take the most foundational one in Western music, the dominant to tonic resolution.
Or what musicians call the V7 to I chord progression, right?
Exactly. So if you play a G7 chord, the specific frequencies of those notes are highly unstable. They clash just enough in our inner ear to create a feeling of unrest.
They're practically pointing at each other, shouting to be resolved into a stable C major chord.
Right. It's like stretching a rubber band as far as it can go.
Yeah.
Your body feels the literal acoustic stress of that stretched band.
And when that sweet C major finally arrives, the rubber band just snaps back to rest. Your body exhales before your conscious mind even registers what happened.
The psychoacoustics of this are just fascinating. The essay brings up the tritone, which in medieval times was historically called the diabolus in musica, or, the devil in music.
Which sounds incredibly dramatic.
It does. It's the pairing of the notes B and F. And the mathematical ratio between these two frequencies is so complex that the human ear actually struggles to process them together.
It sounds cranky.
Yeah, cranky and unstable. It hangs in the air like an unfinished sentence, and it genuinely induces mild physical stress in the listener.
But that stress is the entire point, isn't it? Because when that tritone finally collapses and resolves into a harmonious triad, the contrast is completely euphoric.
Exactly. The devil resolves into the angel. The physical sound wave smooths out, and your brain just rewards you with a massive hit of dopamine for surviving the auditory tension.
It's so cool. And another brilliant example from the essay is the 4/3 suspension, which, if you listen to Bach chorales, you hear this constantly.
Oh, all the time.
So imagine a chord progression moving forward, but one single note from the previous chord hangs over into the new one, like it just refuses to move.
The author compares it to a guest at a party who hasn't realized the dinner is over.
Yes. That is such a good analogy. It creates this beautiful aching dissonance that one stubborn note is just grinding against the new chord, practically begging to resolve down by just a half step.
And the listener's just agonizing over it. It's like a musical itch you can't scratch.
And when the note finally surrenders and takes that tiny half step down, the relief is profound. The physical step down is basically the emotional climax of the piece.
Yeah. The author also mentions the Picardy third, which is where a deeply sad piece in a minor key surprises you by ending on a bright major chord.
Oh, I love that effect. It's the sonic equivalent of sadness resolving into a quiet, unexpected smile.
Right. And what gives this concept so much weight is that this isn't just some quirk of Western music theory. The essay points out that Indian classical music utilizes the exact same biological themes, just through slightly different mechanisms.
Yeah, like in a performance of Raag Yaman, a sitar player might execute a long-held mind, which is this slow slide between notes.
But it's not just sliding from point A to point B.
No, not at all. The player actually bends the string to hover agonizingly around a sharp fourth, creating deliberate emotional yearning before finally letting the note fall where it belongs.
Or think of a bhajan, a devotional song. The harmonium, the tabla drums, and the singer's voice will all wander into these incredibly complex, almost chaotic, rhythmic patterns.
They drift really far afield, building immense anticipation.
Exactly. Before landing perfectly, all at the exact same millisecond. On the tonic note, the C.
That sat acts as a magnetic north. And that landing isn't just musical. It is the exact same liminal gap, the exact same seam that the ancient yogis were talking about when they watched the sun go down.
But, this brings up a rather alarming modern dilemma that the source material touches on. Composers, whether it's Bach, a sitar master, or a jazz pianist, they all know that the silence at the end of a song is a crucial part of the composition.
Right. The reverberation fading into the room is the final essential gap. It's where the nervous system actually processes the journey.
But the technology we use to consume music today has literally no concept of this.
Because streaming algorithms are designed for maximum engagement, which means they autoplay the next track the exact millisecond the current one ends.
There is zero silence, and by ruthlessly optimizing for engagement, we are biologically denying ourselves the exhale phase of the tension release cycle.
We are culturally erasing the very gaps where peace lives.
It's a really profound realization. Musicians aren't just composing the notes, they are composing the gap. The architecture of a song is a charged opposition leading to a hairlined pause, leading to a homecoming.
And by letting an algorithm immediately shove a new wall of sound at us, we lose the homecoming.
Exactly. Our nervous systems are kept in a perpetual state of tension, this chronic low-grade anxiety, just because we never allow the pendulum to find its rest.
Wow. So if music is the external training ground to help us recognize the power of this gap, ancient philosophical traditions are the internal training ground. They teach us how to locate the seam within our own consciousness.
Right. And the essay uses an incredibly vivid metaphor from Vedanta philosophy to illustrate this, the mythical swan, known as the Hamsa.
The Hamsa is said to possess a very specific, almost magical discernment. According to the lore, if you offer the swan a bowl filled with a mixture of milk and water, it can calmly sip only the pure milk and leave the water completely behind.
Which is such a striking image, and it perfectly maps onto human psychology.
Yeah, because we are essentially walking around with our own internal bowls of milk and water mixed together. The milk represents pure awareness.
The witness, the foundational part of your consciousness that observes the world without judgment.
And the water represents the projected ego, the chaotic, opinionated part of the mind.
And I just have to say, the author has a highly relatable way of demystifying the ego here. Instead of treating it as some dark, sinister force we have to battle, he describes the ego as a busy little middle manager who insists on running your social calendar and maintaining your highly specific opinions about cilantro.
That part was so funny. Or he calls it the guy whose Wi-Fi keeps dropping, causing him to panic and overreact to absolutely everything.
It's such a helpful reframing because it strips the ego of its intimidating mystique. You don't have to go to war with the busy middle manager, you just have to recognize him.
Right. The Hamsa's job, and essentially our job, is to gently separate the two. To step back and realize, here is the movie playing with all its drama and noise, and here is the blank screen it's projecting onto.
But here is where the source material drops a massive conceptual aha moment. The name of the swan, Hamsa, is not just a random title. It's actually a phonetic mirror of human breathing.
This honestly blew my mind. When you break it down, ham is the natural physical sound that air makes as it falls out of your lungs on the outbreath.
Right, and sa is the subtle, natural hiss of the air being drawn back in on the in-breath.
So you put them together, and the physical act of breathing is constantly chanting the swan's name, Hamsa.
And it gets even deeper. If you track the breath continuously, starting with the inhale instead of the exhale, the syllables reverse. It becomes soham.
And in Sanskrit, soham translates to I am that.
Exactly. It's a profound declaration of unity with the universe. The mantra and the biological function are identical.
Just to put that into perspective for a second, you don't have to force a spiritual practice. You don't have to memorize complex texts. Your body comes with a built-in operating system running quietly in the background.
The tradition refers to this as the ajapa japa, which roughly means the unrecited recitation.
Right. Your body has been doing this 20,000 times a day since the moment you were born. The breath is the ultimate biological pendulum, constantly swinging between the internal and the external.
And texts like the Vigyan Bhairava Tantra, which is a millennial manual detailing 112 specific meditation techniques, they focus heavily on this exact mechanism.
They don't tell you to focus on the inhale or the exhale, do they?
No, they instruct you to focus on the microscopic space between them, that tiny threshold where the breath literally turns around. That is the gap.
Which begs the ultimate question, how do we actually use this information? Because it's one thing to understand the physics of a pendulum or the translation of an ancient text, and it's entirely another to apply it when you're stuck in traffic or dealing with a stressful email.
Absolutely. The author refers to this practical application as the lazy genius option.
I love that.
Right. It's all based on an economy of energy. Let's break down how we normally spend our attention. When we are living purely in our senses, doom scrolling on our phones, chasing the next snack, obsessing over the news, we are spending our energy outward.
We're draining our bank account of attention into the external world.
Exactly. And the typical response when we feel completely drained by that is to swing wildly in the opposite direction.
Right. We try to force ourselves to be quote unquote spiritual. We try to meditate forcefully, or we wake up at 2 a.m. to rigorously journal and interrogate our life choices.
But the author makes a very sharp observation here. That is still a transaction. You are still actively spending energy, you have just directed it inward instead of outward.
I mean, it might look more respectable than scrolling through social media, but it is still the ego doing work.
Precisely. This is where the third option comes in, the pause. The static point where energy isn't rushing out to conquer the world, and it isn't digging deep inward to conquer the self.
You are simply resting in the seam.
And in the tradition, this perfect balance point is somewhat dramatically referred to as immortality.
Okay, I actually have to stop here because this concept of immortality brings up a major paradox in the essay. The author references Ramana Maharshi, a highly revered Indian sage, who took this a step further and said, we should even push the witness off the stage.
Right, that the pure awareness itself has to go.
But logically, if the observer completely disappears, isn't that just a void? If no one is home, how is peace actually experienced?
It is the ultimate philosophical hurdle. But the author clarifies this perfectly within the framework of the gap. Immortality in this context doesn't mean your physical body lives forever.
Okay.
It means that in that perfect, sustained pause, the concept of a timeline disappears. There's no one to die, because the little me, the ego, with a past and a future, has temporarily ceased to exist.
So even the witness is still a subtle form of ego, right? Because it's
Wow.
still a position of someone watching something.
Exactly. When even the watcher clocks out, the Hamsa isn't sorting milk from water anymore. It just is. The separation completely collapses.
It is a profound state of being, but you definitely don't need decades of monastery training to catch glimpses of it. The essay leaves us with highly practical, almost embarrassingly small experiments to catch these gaps in a normal day.
Yes, the first practice is to just catch one shoreline a day.
This is about physical thresholds, right?
Exactly. When you walk from a busy, noisy street through your front door and into the quiet of your hallway, pay attention. Most of us blindly rush through the doorway, still carrying the noise of the street in our heads.
Right.
So stop on the threshold. Notice the literal transition from chaos to quiet. Linger in that gap for 3 seconds before moving on.
The second practice is to eavesdrop on your breath. And you don't need a meditation cushion for this. Just sit at your desk and feel for that tiny pause after the exhale, right before the body decides to inhale again.
It's shorter than a sneeze, honestly.
Yeah, but recognizing that microsecond of total suspension resets the nervous system.
The third is to spot the gaps between your thoughts. As you observe your mind jumping from a work deadline to, what you want for dinner, try to locate the empty space between those two thoughts.
The author hilariously likens these widening gaps to potholes on a Madras road. You will fall into them, but in this case, the potholes are incredibly pleasant.
And finally, greet the sandhya.
Yeah.
Acknowledge the gear shifts of the day, whether it's sunrise or sunset. Even if you were just glancing out of a kitchen window while doing the dishes, take 3 deliberate breaths.
The atmosphere is literally shifting from light to dark or dark to light. Borrow that neutral atmospheric space to neutralize your own internal charges.
The overarching lesson here is incredibly liberating. You don't need to adopt a monk's ascetic lifestyle, and you don't need to radically alter your personality. The juncture is available to you hundreds of times a day, completely free of charge.
You just have to stop sprinting past it. Sip the milk, let the water go. True peace was never waiting at either extreme end of the seesaw. It has been sitting quietly at the pivot point the entire time, just waiting for you to notice it.
That's beautifully said.
As we wrap up this deep dive, there is one final provocative thought we want to leave you with, kind of expanding on everything we've explored today. If peace physically lives in the gap between discordant musical notes and in the microscopic pause between our breaths, what happens if we apply this geometry to our human interactions?
That's a great question. Think about the next time you find yourself in a really heated argument, or when you are confronted with a highly polarizing viewpoint.
Which happens basically every day online.
Right. Our immediate biological instinct is to rush to the opposite end of the seesaw and slam down a rebuttal. But what if, instead of reacting, you intentionally lingered in the silence between their point and your response?
What if you treated that conversational friction the same way Bach treats a suspended chord?
Exactly. Could that conversational crack be the only place where true, lasting resolution actually lives?
It's definitely something to keep in mind the next time the tension rises. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take a moment, find the seams in your day, and we'll catch you in the next one.